and that will echo. So just let me see if I can switch that.
We are live. We're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Hello and welcome to the Yeg Show with Tee Adeyemo. With advanced elections ongoing across the province, Edmontonians can cast their ballots in the civic election from yesterday, and the first of 10 advanced voting days started for the election on October 18. Residents will elect a mayor, 12 city councillors, as well as 9 trustees and 7 trustees for the Edmonton Catholic Schools. We asked University of Alberta's Associate Professor in the Faculty of Law, Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences to come talk through each of the candidates with us. It's Professor Ubaka Ogbogu. We thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Hello, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Why must we vote?
It's a civic duty. It's probably, in my mind, the most important thing an eligible voter and citizen can do. It's important in a democracy that you take that one day to go and express your wishes with respect to who you want to see in a government position, and especially in this time where we're facing multiple societal crises. We have obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. We have issues around the climate emergency and climate crisis. We have issues around racism, poverty, so many issues. And it's never been more important that we have a government that's able to respond to all of these things. It's a right and privilege, and something that citizens in a democratic society have. And I can't think of any reason not to do it. As a matter of fact, I actually think it should be mandatory for citizens to vote.
I don't know if we're there, but in these elections, who can vote? I know not every Canadian, not every resident can vote. So, who are those who are eligible to vote? Could you please talk us through that?
Well, Canadian citizens who have reached the age of majority, so Canadian citizens who, I believe the voting age is 18, can cast a vote in the elections. I need to check up on that. I think the voting age might be 18 years of age or maybe even earlier. But if you're a Canadian citizen, you have a right to vote in the elections. So only Canadian citizens can vote, not permanent residents. Canadian citizens who have reached the age of voting can cast their ballot, can cast the ballot.
Okay, so we are doing this because of a tweet you sent yesterday, and I feel so proud on 2 levels. I have 2 blue ticks that are following me, and I'm following them. You're one of the blue ticks, and then there's Mac Mill, and blue tick is incredible. So I feel like I know a celebrity. And in your tweet yesterday, you said certain candidates will take us into the dark ages, and I wanted you to explain why whilst you're talking through these buzzwords that we always see progressive, conservative, far right, far left, what does all this mean to maybe the newcomer in politics? Who are these candidates that will take us to dark ages? And who are these so called progressive candidates? And what can they do for us?
That's a big question. Anyway, just to go back to my former point, the voting age is 18 years. So if you're at least 18 years of age and a citizen, you can vote in the elections. For the municipal elections, you have to be obviously a resident of Edmonton to be able to vote in the municipal elections. So if you're a resident of Calgary, you can't vote in Edmonton elections, although there are also municipal elections going on in Calgary. So what do I mean by candidates that take us back to the dark ages? In many ways, it's a political position that I've taken. It's based on my politics, obviously, and my view of what I consider to be the right politics for the time and the wrong politics for the time. But in essence, what I meant by that tweet is that when it comes to municipal elections, we really have to be very much aware of what that means for us as residents of Edmonton. The municipal government is the closest level of government to us as persons who live in Edmonton. It affects our lives most closely. Everything from how our streets are zoned, to garbage disposal, to, road maintenance, to the transit system, how we get our water that we drink. These are issues of essentially life and death for us. They matter to us. They're very close to us as persons. The provincial government affects our lives and the federal government affects our lives, but none of those two levels of government affect our lives as much as the municipal government does. So when it comes to those kinds of issues, we really have to be sure that we're voting in a way that's going to move our city forward, that's going to allow us to respond to the challenges of our time. Those challenges have become very clear to us and they've become very evident to us. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I'll just talk about just a couple. As a Black man in the city, one of the biggest challenges that I see, and one that I think is very important to get out the vote in this election, is the issue of racism, especially anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism. That issue, which by now we all should be aware of because it affects our lives, especially if you're a Black person, an Indigenous person in this city, or a person of color in this city, is linked to many other issues that racialized persons face in this city, including poverty, lack of housing options, and how the system really affects you as a person just because of your skin color or your racial background. And tied to that issue is the issue of policing and how racialized persons are over-policed in this city. For me, that's one of the issues that I like to see people talk about in this election. And so when I say don't vote for candidates that take us back to the dark ages, what I mean with respect to that issue is that I don't want people voting for candidates who support the expansion of the police. I don't want people voting for candidates who want the police to get more money. The police already has way too much money that it needs to have. I would rather support candidates who want to shrink the police budget and who want to move that money out of the police budget into things that actually raise people's conditions of living, that actually makes life better for those people in this city who are struggling. So I'd like to see candidates who support moving that money into social supports and social services, into things like providing more housing options for persons who are without a house. I'd like to see it moved into supports for mental health and addictions. I'd like to see it moved into things like providing free transit so that people can get around. Free transit helps a lot of people who can make ends meet. That's what I like to see the candidates do. And so if you're a candidate who says, let's increase the police budget, I think you're living in the dark ages and people shouldn't vote for you. But if you're a candidate who supports shrinking the police budget and taking money away from the police to support and fund all of these things I've talked about, then I obviously will want to see you get elected. I'll take a second issue. Oh, sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there because you're clear on your politics, but I also know that African and indigenous organizations like BCW and African Center have had their budgets doubled. So this COVID and since last year, Black organizations are actually doing well for Black people. So the Black cause, I think, has been number one on the city's list, I think. In terms of the money, even the federal government is pumping into Black agencies. I'm just wondering, in light of all these things, would you still, talk in terms of right politics, wrong politics, racism, and things like that? Because the government is pumping a lot of money as well to alleviate the Black problem, poverty, etc.
I don't know where that information comes from, but I don't know that that's, first of all, I don't know that that's accurate. I don't know that. But I don't even know that that's the solution. So in the first thing is the government reacting to this current moment by giving more money to Black organizations does not end racism. It doesn't actually begin to scratch the surface. Sure, there's been some more support for Black organizations, but the nature of the task that these organizations face and the nature of the problem of racism as it affects Black people cannot be solved by just pumping money into some organizations. The nature of the problem that we're facing is one that has to be addressed. It's a very complex problem. It has to be addressed in ways that, first of all, dismantle a system that oppresses Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color in this country. It's not so much about giving money to certain organizations. I mean, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. It's about actually, these people who hold power giving up some of it and having more representation at the table, more racialized persons represented at the table, so we can start to take charge of our own destiny. It is very simplistic to assert that racism has ended and we don't need to do more by simply giving money to certain organizations. Not that support is not good, it just doesn't begin to scratch the surface in any way. So, for example, if you give money to the African Center, that doesn't in any way provide jobs for Black people. It doesn't deal with the problem of Black people who don't have good housing options and who have to live in places where they're over-policed. It doesn't stop police from harassing them. It doesn't do anything at all to address the systemic issues that Black people struggle with here. It's not in any way relevant. And if that's the city's approach, if the city's approach is let's just give money to Black organizations and wash our hands off of it, then that tells you the level of dysfunction that needs to be corrected. And, what I'm suggesting here is not that they start giving money to Black organizations. They can do that. That's fine. But that you actually dismantle a system of oppression that affects Black people by removing money from police. You're essentially telling police to stop using the resources that they have to go after, policing these communities. And instead, you're taking that money and shifting into something like, for example, if something like free transit will improve the lives of a lot of racialized persons in this city. A lot of Black people get harassed on transit for not paying the fare. If you take that out and they're able to move freely around the city, that increases job opportunities for them, that increases their ability to be able to get around the city. That's much better than just simply giving money to the African Center. And it's not a matter of my politics, if I might add. These are actually facts. Regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, you have to be able to appreciate the fact that, this city does not treat white people the same as it treats racialized persons. And if you don't accept that fact, then I think you're living in dark ages. And people should vote for you.
No, I'm not an enemy of Black
no, not you, not you in particular.
Okay.
I'm just talking generally, yeah.
Okay. I'm just testing the waters here. I live in a cozy house with my sister. You would know. I'm not even Canadian, so I'm just like a wannabe at the moment with no entrenched roots. But my stance does not matter. What I'd like for you to examine for us is when you say candidate is progressive, like Mr. So is progressive, he's conservative. What does that even mean? Is far right, is far left, is right in the middle? What should we be looking for as we go out to vote? Should we be looking for liberal candidates? Should we be looking for or progressive candidates or far right, I don't know. Could you please, shed some light into those terminologies for us?
Well, I mean, I think anyone who is minded to examine these things already has some sense of what, anybody who's politically aware already has some sense of what these terms mean. Essentially, these terms can be ways of grouping people into broad categories. I think they are largely, to be honest, meaningless in terms of describing how people's political philosophies work. It's just that convenient terms that we use to just show where somebody is on the political spectrum. So if I may just give sort of a rough approximation of what these terms mean, when I use them is because it's like a shorthand that I'm using to communicate to people who already understand it. But of course, people's ideas about what they want are really complex. And there are people who are essentially all over the place with respect to how they react to many of the cities that matter, the issues that matter in a municipal election. But generally, when you say somebody is progressive or to the left of the political spectrum, my understanding of it is that that's a person who views society as not being static, and society changes. And what they would like to see is for our policies and for the government to change with society and to drive towards issues that respond to how society progresses. The way I understand it is that people who are progressive generally will like for the government to respond to the basic needs of that we have in society, and to do so with a view to raising those who are essentially being left behind by society, and equalizing opportunity for everybody. So, as a progressive, I believe that there are certain basic goods that we should have in society, and everyone should have it, regardless of whether you're rich or poor. Everyone should have, healthcare. You should have good drinking water. Everyone should have access to a home and a house to live in. Everyone should have access to, just basic necessities of life. And it's the government's job to provide that, and shouldn't, allow only those who are rich to have it. And then there are people who essentially take the opposite view. So if you see them on the sort of the right of the spectrum, and essentially they believe that we should essentially not react to societal changes, and took as a slow burn approach, I suppose. But that side of the, I don't want to describe what they believe, but my understanding of it is they see everything as working through a system where there are people who hold all the resources, and those people who hold the resources then offer it out to those of us, to the rest of society who don't have it. They believe in something called, like a trickle-down effect, where, you essentially enable certain elements of society, usually corporations and capitalists, and then those capitalists then hand to us, the rest of the citizenry, what we should get. Now, in the municipal elections, what matters really is that you support candidates who want to create a city that works for everyone. That is what I mean by progressive in the context of municipal elections. A city that works for everyone. Right now, this city does not work very well for racialized persons. It doesn't work very well for people who are poor. It doesn't work very well for persons who have mental health issues and who suffer from addiction problems. It doesn't work very well for those who don't have good access to social services. And it works really well for some others. It works really well for those who are rich, who can afford multi-million-dollar homes, and people who have means. And all I'm saying is support candidates who are going to create a city that works for everyone. That's what I mean by progressive.
I'm just wondering, Professor, that we are not putting too much on the fragile shoulders of these politicians. Is it not too much? I think. And then we're disappointed at the end. Like, we expected Obama to change the world, and at the end of 8 years, it was still more of the same. Is this not too much of an aspiration that these candidates are unable to make us? One, maybe they don't even understand how badly entrenched the problem of racialized policing is. I'm just
no, we're not expecting too much from them. No, of course not. I mean, we should expect from them what they promise that they're going to go do there. I am not running for city council, so I don't have to make any promises. But if they are running, they've made some promises of what they're going to deliver. So they should deliver those things, and they have access. They have the key to the kingdom, if you will. When they get in there, they have a right to vote, and they sit at the table to vote on issues affecting the city. So if we don't expect from them, who are we to expect from? They control all of the things I've told you before, things to do with how the city runs, how we live in the city, who gets a road and who doesn't get a road, who gets housing and who doesn't get housing, how streets are zoned. They have a huge amount of responsibility. If you're not ready for it, then you shouldn't run. But if you run, I don't think it's unfair to expect that you live up to the duties of the office. That's essentially what we expect politicians to do, live up to the duties of the office. And if you can't, you simply resign and somebody will take your place who can do it. That's like saying, I'm a professor. That's like saying, is it not too much to expect me to go and teach? That's what I do.
Okay, I hear you, sir. I'm just wondering, could it be what another aspect of what you're saying is we should just support all the black candidates because they would be supporting Black lives. They'll be looking out for the poor, for people with mental health issues, and is that what
No,
you're
that's not what I'm
generally
saying. God,
convinced?
no.
Vote for the
No.
black and the
No.
women.
I have
No,
never said that. No. God,
all right.
no. No. I have never said that, and I will never say that. No. I don't even know how to begin to respond to that. I'm saying support candidates who have policies that will raise everyone, regardless of their race, gender, oh, sorry. Excuse me. Support candidates who will provide, who will support the policies I've talked about. Somebody being black doesn't mean they support these policies. We have black conservative politicians, for example. I've been on this show before. I've talked about the justice minister, who I think is actually not supporting anti-racist policies. He said some things recently, for example, that I find quite ridiculous when it comes to to ending systemic racism. He, for example, supports increasing the police budget. That I don't think is something that serves black people well. So it's not something that has to go. It doesn't mean that if you're black and if you're, I suppose, a man or a woman, that you naturally will do things that will raise black people. No, that's not it. As a matter of fact, what I'm saying is everyone should pay attention to the issues that matter to you and that matter to those around you, and then find the candidate that reflects those issues and support that candidate. One of the persons on my list of people not to vote for is Malik Chukwudi, who is of Nigerian descent. Yeah. So, and I've said don't vote for him.
Why wouldn't you have voted for him?
He doesn't support the policies that will move the city forward. He doesn't support policies that will.
He's also Korean and Igbo. It ticks the indigenous and black boxes.
That's not the point. The point is he doesn't support policies that I think will move the city forward. That's the bottom line. If he did, then by all means, I'll be rooting for him, but he doesn't.
Okay, funny you mentioned Malik Chukwudi. I was just going to ask you a question about endorsement, and he endorsed Mike Nicol, ending his own race. And we know that different politicians like Mr. Shepherd endorsed Nomadic and so on and so forth. Do endorsements actually count? Will endorsements count in this race? What do you think?
They don't hurt. Endorsements allow people who know the endorser and who support the endorser to have some sense of who they might support. They don't hurt. I don't know if they help. I'm not a political scientist, but I know they don't hurt. I know if you have a prominent politician endorsing someone, then people who like that prominent politician will naturally think, well, if you support this person, then maybe because I like you, maybe I should support that person too. So I don't think it hurts. And going back to Malik supporting Mike Nicol, that's also a reason that something that gives me cause for concern. I think Mike Nicol is by far the worst candidate on the ballot. Even just putting aside his policies, is just a horrible human being who doesn't actually respect his constituents. He doesn't, answer questions when he's asked questions. He doesn't even provide comments to the press. He clearly has a lot of money riding behind him from special interests that he wants to promote. And for Malik to endorse him clearly tells me that they're cut from the same cloth. Even though they are of two different races, they're cut from the same cloth. And that's another reason not to support either candidate.
You're going to get a lot of flack from Mr. Nicol's supporters. You've just tore him into pieces just now, Professor. You're going to get into trouble or not. To be honest,
why? They are welcome. They are welcome to come on your show and respond. Why would I get into trouble with them? I mean, I don't. We live in a civilized society. Anybody who hears my comments and thinks they are wrong can come on your show and invite them on your show and they can say they're a bit. But what I'm saying is factual. He doesn't actually. I mean, if he's blocked me on Twitter, he's blocked a lot of his constituents on Twitter. I'm not saying things that are.
I'm just saying, Mr. Casey Madu has not returned any of our emails since the last show we did together, because I'm not quite sure he liked the way the conversation went. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get back into it. So, talking about your mayoral candidate, I hear what you're saying about Mr. Nicol and Abdul Malik Chukudi, those two out. What is your problem with Miss Watson? She seems very. Who is your candidate, for starters? And I think Miss Watson, she has my heart, but she doesn't have your heart, and you're going with a patriarchal candidate. Why? Why?
I don't have anything personal against these people. All I'm saying is they are politicians. They've put out a platform that they want people to vote for, right? Anyone can go on their website and look at their platform. I have looked at their platforms. I don't think their platforms represent what the city needs at this time. That's what. It's not personal. I don't have anything. I don't even know Cheryl Watson. I've never met Cheryl Watson. I just looked at Cheryl Watson's platform, and it's not going to achieve the kind of city that I described to you. A city where everyone has an equal opportunity to live a good life and succeed. I think the candidate that most, and like I said in my tweet yesterday, all of the candidates are problematic to me. All of them don't. If I had to design a platform, it would be different in many respects from many of the candidates in different ways. But the one that represents the one that comes the closest to what I think will raise the city in all areas is Amajid Sohi. And the reason for that is because Mr. Sohi's platform addresses all of the issues that I think the city is facing right now, and at least provides a very considered proposal for how to resolve them. Some of the proposals don't go far enough. I don't think his proposal on policing, for example, goes far enough. But I'm pretty radical on policing, and I'm not a politician. So maybe he's taking the approach that this is what is workable for him. But still, I think as a package, his represents the most, forward-thinking platform, and the one that will create the best opportunity for citizens of the city, for residents of the city, especially for those who need the city to actually stand up for them and raise them.
I mean, I have to say, Professor Ubaka, that Mr. Sohi has personally impressed me. We're a small outfit, and he's not very far away. You can reach him. He returns emails. He calls you back, and he cares for the little people. And he has such a big profile, federal minister. He ran twice as wow.
Well, have you tried inviting Mike Nicol to your show?
Oh, he won't come.
Oh, so there again. So I don't know why Mike Nicol supporters will say I'm saying something. That tells you what I'm saying. Yeah. So
Mr. Sohi has impressed me, by his generosity, and so I have to say you're correct.
And that's important, because when he becomes mayor, you want a mayor that you can call and say, "Can you come talk to my community?" And the mayor says, "I will come and talk to your community." You don't want a mayor that you send an email to and you don't hear from him, or he blocks you on Twitter. And that, to me, is a signal of the man's character. And another reason why I prefer him to a number of those other candidates who don't provide easy access to citizens. If you're already too big for your citizens before you get into office, can you even imagine what's going to happen when you get there?
But I need to say that Miss Watson, Diana Steele, Mr. Hushri, Mr. Mara, Kim Krishna, all of them, they came on the candidate forum we organized. In all fairness, I've got to say thank you again for that. So moving away from the mayoral candidates, there were some councillors you asked people to stay away from?
I don't even know if my endorsements count for anything, to be honest. I don't want to put too much emphasis on the endorsements that I make. These are just my personal views on the matter. But again, the same reasons why I endorsed Mr. Sohi is the reason why I'm endorsing these candidates. I'm endorsing candidates that I think will represent the policies I've talked about the best. Candidates that I think will push for more anti-racist policies. Candidates that I think, from reviewing their platforms, will push for decreasing the police budget and moving the money into other social supports for the less disadvantaged members of our community. Candidates that I think will pay attention to the climate crisis and will implement policies in council to help us at least stop our very fast and precipitous move towards the destruction of our planet. Candidates that will implement policies that create for a city that's denser, more walkable, that where we're not driving so much, where we're not just building roads and all of these homes that no one can afford, where we're not selling the city to developers, or we're not spending too much time worrying about our downtown when people can't eat or take transit in the city. Just candidates that would just at least implement policies that help the less advantaged in our society, and be able to raise people in that sense. That's all that's the list of councillors I believe that can do that. That's what it is.
Hey, Professor Ubaka, you have about 24,000 followers. So people, and they are based, some of your followers are based in Canada, here in Edmonton. So people are paying attention because you think things through, you know what you're saying. So that's why we're doing this. You know what you're talking about. So yeah, we want to know who your preferred candidate for Ward Arnick is. Is that Mark Davis Bev, the incumbent, Ali Amo, Erin Rutherford, or Tyler Zutz?
I don't have any.
For that board.
So, it's a very massive task to review all the candidates, and there are some wards that I haven't looked closely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the ward in which you did look. You chose Shamir Turner for Ward Cario when Karen Tang was in that ward. What was about Shamir's candidacy that you preferred?
Everything I just spoke about in the last question.
Okay, right.
Shamir is the best candidate for that.
Really?
She's not just anti-racist. She's intersectional anti-racist. She clearly understands the problem. She understands that the problem is a complex one that needs to be solved by, starting with, dismantling these systems that keep oppressing racialized people. She's an excellent candidate. And clearly, if you live in that ward, you should be supporting Shamir. She's the best option for councillor for that ward.
For that ward. Okay, for Ward Nakota Isga, it was Andrew Knack for very obvious reasons.
Yeah, I live in Nakota Isga, so
Andrew
he's dutifully served this ward for 2 terms now, I believe. This is a very affluent ward, in many respects, but also a ward where there's a sharp divide between rich and poor in this ward, and we don't have a lot of options for councillor. But Andrew has impressed over time with his ability to sort of put his head down and kind of have an understanding of what's going on in the ward and what's going on in the city generally, and be able to respond to many of those issues. He actually initiated, I don't know if people know this, he initiated the city council's review of the police last year. He initiated the city council's response to the Black Lives Matter movement, and I've been very impressed with him and with his attention to issues that don't even sort of affect him personally. And for me, he's the clear choice for Nakota Isga.
For what Odemin, it has and what Métis, they both have a huge amount of candidates. For what Odemin, was that Anne Stevenson?
I don't think I have any
For what
views
do
on
they
that word.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let that go. So was Liz John West your preferred candidate for Ward Métis or Ashley Salvador? I
No.
think it was Salvador.
Yeah, I
Salvador.
reviewed the platforms in that ward, and Ashley impressed me with what she's put forward in terms of what she wants to do. There's a number of very good progressive candidates in that ward. Another name that has come up is Cory Longo. Who's also a good progressive candidate in the ward. I don't think you could really go wrong in that ward with the number of progressive candidates that they have there and people who have put their names forward. The problem I see in that ward is what people call vote splitting among progressive candidates. There's a number of good options. But Ashley Salvador impressed me with our platform, even though I've heard from others that Cory Longo is also a great candidate for the ward.
So you chose Aaron J. Ali. Was it because of his youthfulness or because he got it? He gets it?
Well, I've seen a lot of growth in Harun since he announced his candidacy. I mean, it's a very bold thing for someone of his age to decide to run for city council. But that's what we always talk about. People always talk about how young people should get involved in politics, how young people should, put themselves forward. And I think Harun has been excellent, really, in terms of the bravery he's shown in stepping forward, but also in how much he's grown since he stepped forward, how he's managed to sort of organize himself and his thoughts around what he really wants. And you can see that he has that spirit of youth, but also he's not, using it in a way that's wasteful. He's actually very, very well organized in terms of how he's approached this. His thoughts are very clear. He has that bravery of youth, but it's not like wild bravery. He actually has a good sense of what's achievable, and he's fearless. And I think he's the clear candidate for me in a very, in a ward, again, that there's an abundance of riches in that ward. There's other progressive candidates. But I think the thing I really like about Arun's candidacy is that you can tell these are personal issues for him. He's grown up in this city as a young Black man. Many of the things I talked about here, he's been affected by. He's been over-policed. He has a real sort of lived experience in this, and he wants to go in there as a young person and change things. I think he's going to vote in the right way. I think he needs 4 years to mature even more. And I think, we're looking at a future mayor of the city, and he should start now. He shouldn't wait 4 years to start. He should start now. He should get involved now. We should support him because he's young, he's vibrant, he has good ideas. And I think we're looking at a future Black leader in our community, and we should all throw our support behind him if we live in that ward. He's by far the one candidate that I'm really passionate about.
Oh, wow. And I know for Taster, Winnie, what? God help me. Yeah, okay, for
I know the word you're talking about. Yes.
Former Ward 3, your preferred candidate is nomadic.
Yes. Clearly a community leader already, somebody who's very well respected. For the same reasons why I'm passionate about Harun's candidacy, I'm also passionate about his. I think, for him, he's a clear choice in that ward. He understands the problem on the north side. He's lived all his life, or most of his life, sorry. He truly represents somebody who is, a homegrown candidate for that ward, and somebody who understands the issues facing, especially racialized communities in that ward. He also has the necessary background, the right, head on his shoulders. I definitely think he's the person to vote for in that ward.
Professor Ubaka, you don't mince words when you tweet, and every time you tweet, I get a notification. So I'm so up to date with everything you do. So you will know you have stalkers. I just confessed. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. The current police chief, Dale McVeigh, will be staying on till 2026. They've renewed his contract. What are your thoughts? Is he someone you are pleased with, or has he done a good job?
I try not to have thoughts on everything. So let me just put it this way. I am somebody who's generally not impressed with, my default to the police is to always be suspicious of where they're coming from. I have to say that, in the current climate where we're trying to sort of do something, where people are finally paying attention to anti-racism, I like to see a police chief who's very conscious of that and who sort of works with the municipal government and the provincial government and with community groups to try and achieve a state where the police is not serving as a negative force in the lives of racialized persons. The police should be there to provide safety for all, not just for some. Should be there to respect the rights of all, not just some, and definitely should not exist as a force of evil or bad things for certain segments of society. I don't have a problem with any police chief in particular, but if you have a police chief who supports making sure that the police works for everyone, then why not? I just don't know that the Edmonton Police Force right now is doing that, and that's why I'm going to leave those comments. I'm not going to comment on the police chief personally.
It sounds like you've given him the pass mark. Good on him.
No, that's not what I just said. No,
Okay.
What I said to be very clear is that the Edmonton police is still very problematic to me. So anybody, obviously, who's at the head of that police force needs to do some thinking about how not to create a situation where people like me feel that the police is not working for us. I have not in giving him a pass mark or a fail mark for that matter. I'm just thinking the police service is not working for people like me right now, and it should be working for everyone. And it should be looking out for everyone and not making some people feel like they're not welcome in this city. And to the extent that is still happening in this city, then the police chief and every police officer in the city and anyone who cares about the citizens of the city should be doing some deep thinking about how to achieve a state where people don't feel threatened by police presence.
Okay, I hear what you said about Chief Dale McFay. Thanks for clarifying.
I didn't actually say anything about him.
About the renewal of his appointment. That was what you were talking about, no?
No, don't reframe what I've said. What I've said is I have no comments on him. I don't know him. I don't really pay attention to police chief. I pay attention to the police as a force in people's lives. And as far as I'm concerned,
you're not giving Edmonton police a pass mark generally.
No, God, no. The Edmonton police, no, I am not.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it there. Professor Ubaka, Thanksgiving is coming around on Monday. What are your plans for Thanksgiving? You're Canadian. It is a Canadian tradition. Have you thought about Thanksgiving yet, or it's too early?
I didn't even know what's coming up. That's how much I've thought about it. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in our world right now, and a lot of the traditions that we usually have, I suppose if I haven't thought about it, that just tells you where my mind is at right now. There's a lot going on that I have to worry about on a daily basis, including whether my kids are going to go to school and come back without COVID. Making sure that I don't get infected myself, making sure that I pay attention to what's going on around me, making sure that any influence that I have, I use it well. But I'm sure at some point it's going to come up, and we will do what we always do on Thanksgiving, which is celebrating the way that we can and try to be part of the community and be conscious of people who don't have what we have. That's really, for me, the emphasis is being conscious of people who don't have what I have and trying to think about how I can use every day and every hour of my life to try and make sure that I am influencing society in a way that can bring about positive change for those kinds of people. So that's the thanks I'm going to be giving. Just a keen awareness that I need to be doing more to make sure that everyone is okay.
I mean, you've brought that home in a way that only you can. Now, Thanksgiving has a damper over it.
No, it shouldn't. People should do what
You
they
know,
do. I'm just talking about what I'm gonna do.
we're all gonna be very, very miserable this
No, don't
Thanksgiving,
be miserable. If you
and
have
not
something to give thanks
celebrate
for,
at
by all means
all.
give thanks. But from my own perspective, these traditions, of course, we have to, it wouldn't change what people are going to do. Whatever I say is not going to change what people are going to do. But for me, this year, I'm particularly mindful of the immense amount of privilege I have in my life, but also about how people sometimes listen to me because I now go on shows like this and I say things that are on my mind. So I'm just trying to sort of use the opportunity to make people aware that these traditions and these occasions that we celebrate in our lives, some people don't have that opportunity to celebrate it, and we should be mindful of that, and we should do what we can, to also contribute to helping everyone have a good Thanksgiving. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Don't let it be a damper. Do what you do. What are you going to do for Thanksgiving?
You just asked me what am I going to do for Thanksgiving. At the moment, I'm going to be thinking about people who don't have as much.
No, that wasn't what you were going to do.
I'm going to be reflecting on the high numbers of COVID cases and
no, you can do it however you want to do it. You don't have to do it like me.
Putting positive vibes into the environment and just hope we get through this Thanksgiving and make it through to Christmas alive and well. So we don't suffer. Professor Ubaka, you've been amazing, and I thank you. It's always so nice speaking to you back and forth, and I wish everyone listening a very safe Thanksgiving, because I think that's what you're saying to people. You want them to be safe this Thanksgiving, in spite of the rise in COVID cases, and in spite of the fact that COVID is still very much a presence with us.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
What you're saying. All right, then, Professor Ubaka, thank you. I'm gonna leave it there. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna end this broadcast now, but please don't go away. So give me 2 minutes.